Third reading of Senate Bill 4 relating to government.
Is there any discussion? If not, is there any discussion? No discussion? Senator Green?
I support public transportation in Hawaii. Hawaii should have an efficient, environmentally sound and friendly, cost-effective transit system that works for our families, creates jobs, and helps our economy grow. But I cannot support the bill before us today, and here's why. 10 years ago, the legislature decided to address the problems of traffic congestion on Oahu. No one has disputed that this is a critical problem and that it needs to be solved. So we ended up passing one of the largest tax increases in Hawaii history to pay for one of the biggest and most expensive state projects ever. But since then, due to massive overruns and unexpected costs, Mr. President, a $4 billion project has ballooned into an $8 billion project in cost that will indebt and burden generations to come in Hawaii. By the time it's completed, it's likely that this project will cost more than $10 billion for an urban transportation project in our small and mostly rural state. I'm not pointing fingers or blaming anyone. I'm stating facts. What was supposed to be a temporary tax increase has been extended far into the future. And many people believe that just to manage and maintain this project, the tax increase will eventually have to become permanent. That's just always what seems to happen. To give you guys some perspective, when we passed that first increase in the GET, my wife Jamie and I had just learned that week that we were expecting our first child, Maya. Maya is 10 years old today. This week, the tax that was supposed to be temporary will be extended at least until she's out of college. And the project won't be completed until Maya is an adult with children of her own. Now we're proposing an additional 13-year statewide tax burden on tourism, our most important industry, and one our economy depends on for growth, as we all know. 10 years ago, there was hope that a project of this magnitude, would create jobs, spur economic growth, and would help working families. And to some degree, it's begun to do that. But at what cost to our taxpayers? At what cost to Hawaii families, Mr. President? Too many families across our state understand that raising taxes on the neighbor islands to pay for this urban project, one that is vastly over budget and far from complete, just doesn't make sense and doesn't seem fair. And because we've become so preoccupied with bailing out a project that's considered too big to fail, we haven't been able to make progress on many other issues that could make a real difference in the lives of Hawaii families. Colleagues, ask yourselves how many times in the last 10 years that we've had together here that we've needed to solve other major challenges in Hawaii, but we couldn't even consider the GET to address them because we'd already raised taxes and mortgaged our future.
I'm opposed to, get this, a Brobdingnagian budget-busting boondoggle that has become a black hole sucking in all of the priorities that the former speaker mentioned. The city is crying out that they can't afford this rail system, and they certainly can't afford it based on their own revenue, so therefore they need more money. So now we're going into taxing tourists, we're adding more money to the poor and the downhearted here that can barely afford the cost of living as it is.
We've all heard from our constituents who are angry, frustrated, unhappy, unsatisfied with what has happened with the rail system. Something that started off under $4 billion is now approaching $10 billion. Totally unacceptable to our voters and to the residents of Hawaii. We are unhappy with the bloated cost, high expenses, and the cost overruns, which make many people question what the heck is the city and county and HART doing with this project. But unfortunately, there is no turning back, and we've also heard from our constituents from that perspective. We can't turn back. We're not going to tear down what's been built. We need to complete this for the sake of Oahu, Honolulu's economy, and for future generations. Our backs are against the wall. If someone has a better idea, please present it, because I haven't seen it or heard it. In our democracy, we have to compromise and negotiate, and that's what has happened. The Senate had a measure at the end of last session, and the House did. We were miles apart. And the city and county was panicking and stuck.
Firstly, may I ask that the words of the senator from Kona be included in the journal as if they were my own?
So ordered.
I appreciate him bringing up the important point of how we can afford either rail or everything else. I also observe how in the last couple of years we did not raise taxes for Kapuna Care. We did not raise taxes for our teacher crisis, but we're raising taxes for rail. Among the greatest costs of rail, we can now add a severe degradation of the democratic process. By that I mean this bill was crafted behind closed doors and presented to us with the instructions that there will be no changes before we ever heard from the public. So we had a hearing. We had a public hearing on Monday after the bill was written in its final form. I don't know what they think that we were doing listening to them, but it was not a legitimate public input. We have a major new tax being enacted, and we never heard from the public before we wrote the bill.
The majority floor leader said, if there's other ideas, let me hear it. How? How were we supposed to hear these other ideas? This session is 5 days long to pass a bill that is for over $2 billion. Give me a break. The Super Ferry session was 8 days long. There were informational briefings on 4 islands. We're raising the TAT statewide, and we haven't had a single hearing on the neighbor island. We're having a 5-day session, and people who want to talk about alternatives are being quashed and told that they cannot raise them because if you rock the boat, we won't get this deal through. How is the city and county going to pay for upgrading the water and sewer lines that are needed before we can do any transit-oriented development along the rail lines? We've been talking public-private partnerships since 2006. I mentioned that newspaper article yesterday where the former Mayor Mufi Hanneman said, we don't need any more taxes other than the $3 billion for rail because we're going to do public-private partnerships. Not one. Why? How does an individual developer who's going to go in and put in a mixed-use housing project pay to upgrade the water and sewer lines that not only deal with that housing project along the rail line, but also all the housing and other projects around it? And the only way we've known how to invest in that infrastructure in recent years is by requiring the developers to do it. So you know what happens when they do it? They have to build higher price housing. Look what happened in Kaka'ako. We're shutting down not only the GET, but now the TAT to deal with the problems that our senator from Kona just raised. And the irony is every single one of us that drive into this building off of Punch Bowl, this entire week we're driving by an elderly, sick, and probably severely mentally ill gentleman who is lying on the grass at the entrance to that parking lot, slowly dying. It's like a third world country where we ignore that, and we come in here, and in a 5-day session, we pass a bill for $2 billion for a project that's not going to finish that project, that's not going to achieve the things like the TOD that we've talked about, and then we walk away. I agree with the senator from Puna that I think one of the biggest casualties of this session is the fact that this Senate body has quashed debate because we had the ability to force the debate and the discussion to try and come up with a holistic solution to these very serious problems. And we've not done it.
In the final days of the last session, we negotiated and proposed a floor amendment very similar to the bill that you see before us today. Given what happened at the end of session, some may be surprised that I am supporting this bill. My position and my vote today, as it was when I was WAM chair, is as it always has been, about the issue. My primary concern then and now with any rail funding bill is ensuring that it is not a blank check on the backs of our taxpayers, continuing to further burden our residents for decades like others have proposed, and that it holds the city accountable. There was much stir and focus about the who, the what, the when, and the how of what was put forward. Sadly, I believed one of the most overlooked and underappreciated question in it all was the why. Why did we look at other sources of funding? As WAM chair, I saw the burden that a long-term additional general excise tax would place on those least able to afford it. People are struggling. When I take the kids to school, when I go to soccer practices, when I'm at Cub Scouts, you shop at Long's every day, you hear it. You all see it, just like me. Yes, we've got cranes in the sky and we've got relatively low unemployment, but it's getting harder and harder to make ends meet. So many of us sit at that kitchen table every month, just like our families that live right next door to us, struggling to make it through and to get things to balance. And those responsible for rail need to do the very same thing. They need to make sure that they can control costs. They need to balance their budgets as well. And even supporting a very short-term extension of the GET surcharge, it is not lost on me how difficult this is for our people.
So as many people know, I have been one of the leading champions of Honolulu's rail project for so many years. I continue to be a strong advocate for rail. It pains me to stand here today to vote no on this bill. I truly wish that I could vote yes, but my conscience will not allow me to do so. I find this bill to be not in good public policy. It intrudes into county home rule. It inserts the state into the accountability of a county project, and it introduces unnecessary risks that may lead to the demise of the very rail project that we are trying to support. This bill has us arguing endlessly with the city administration and city council about what is adequate funding to complete the rail system. It pits Oahu against neighbor islands. In Hawaii, the state
President,
gives...
recess, please.
I would
Or
like
point
to
personal privilege.
let Senator
Mr.
Harimoto
President, I don't
conclude
think
his
it's appropriate
remarks.
to be speaking and moving around the chamber when another person is speaking. I think we should show them the due respect they have as senators. Thank you,
So
Mr.
please
President. Sorry to
proceed,
interrupt.
Senator Harimoto.
Thank you. It is for these reasons that I must vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, please call the... Could you take your seat, please, Senator Rhodes? Do you intend to enter into some discussion now? No, I'm going to recognize you, but if you are going to speak, I have to say something before you proceed.
Very short.
I was asked by the senator from Kona to maintain the decorum in the chamber. So I'm asking you to do that. And since I've been asked to strictly enforce the decorum of these proceedings, I would like to personally apologize to the senator from Kaneohe as well as Senator Harimoto for not having asked the senator from Kona to stop having a side discussion with his colleague next to him as you are speaking. And so everyone is on notice that I will be strictly enforcing the decorum for the rest of the discussion as it has been requested. Senator Rhodes, please proceed.
Request permission to enter written comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
So, colleagues, and I hope everyone who's listening, please ask yourselves why we race to spend $2 billion to solve the rail problem, which should be solved. when we can't do anything to solve these other questions in hundreds of days here at the Capitol? What is the problem with us debating these issues and getting to the right solution for the next decade? We talked about accountability earlier. At the end of the session, it should be clear, at the last second, a 2.75% tax increase on TAT was raised with no input from anybody, not even the hotels, as though we should just roll over and do that. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of asks fell on deaf ears over the years. It was mentioned earlier that there's an individual dying on the grounds of the Senate and the Capitol. Every day when I go take care of people, I wonder why we don't have more resources for kids who are overdosing on methamphetamine, on heroin, on prescription pills. And those bills die year after year after year in the committees. And we gloss over it and we say we're accountable. We're not accountable. We kill bills and we don't achieve things here. And then we go back to powerful constituencies who I respect, who do great work for the state of Hawaii. And we rush through answers that will condemn us to years of paralysis politically. And I will not listen to long lists of how we've saved people when I have seen people die because we haven't taken action. I have seen opportunities to pass bills that would help protect individuals, to fund programs. And then we come back here and we gloss over it and we get political. We do talking points. We look to the cameras and we say, oh, we're accountable. We're not accountable most of the time. And then we come here and have the audacity to say in 3 days that we can get this rail thing going and it's going to be fine and it's not going to curtail those objectives. That is an abomination to say that, and it is not true. We should take care of people, and we shouldn't hide behind our past committees. We shouldn't kill bills silently and never schedule them. We should actually look to the people who need us. That is why we are here. And if it means we leave office a day early or a year early or a term early, that is fine. But it is an embarrassment to go back to the people and say we're doing an accountable process and taking care of the needs of the people. We could do so much more for people. It's incredible. We know our public school system needs to be improved. We know we should be a blue state leader on issues like loan repayment for college. We know that we don't put real resources into helping people with drug addiction. We know it. And then we come here and we pass in 3 days a $2 billion increase. Don't kid yourselves. Don't kid the people. We could be here for a couple weeks and get this straight. We're condemning ourselves to a policy position that will have ramifications for years, and we will not be able to help people because of it. So please, when you cast this vote today, even if you totally support rail, totally want to see it get done, vote no on this bill, force the House to come to us and solve the problems, be totally transparent. There was not transparency in the legislation that we were about to vote on at the end of the last session. There was not accountability. Audit the heck out of this thing. Make sure the project ends for good people who are building it and build those jobs, but do not condemn us for the next decades, because then you will not be able to take care of your constituencies, and you'll look back on this and you will feel very, very badly that you didn't live up to why we were sent here. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Baker, Senator Chang, Senator Dela Cruz, Senator English,
No.
Senator Espero,
Yes.
Senator Gabbard, Senator Galutaria, Senator Green,
No.
Senator Harimoto, Senator Ihara, Senator Inoue, Senator Kahele, Senator Keith Agaran, Senator Kidani, Senator Kim, Senator Nishihara, Senator Rhodes, Senator Riviere, Senator Ruderman, Senator Shimabukuro, Senator Taniguchi, Senator Thielen, Senator Tokuda, Senator Wakai. Mr. President.
Aye.
16 ayes, 9 noes.
Thank you. Senate Bill 4 passes third reading.
Referrals and re-referrals.
Referrals and re-referrals are made in accordance with the supplemental order of the day, which may be distributed to your offices later today.
No further business, Mr. President.
Are there any announcements today? If not, the chair has one. I'd be remiss if I didn't say to Senator De La Cruz and his staff my appreciation for the hard work and commitment. Contrary to what has been said, I appreciate the 5 various scenarios that you laid out in great detail. The information wound up being made available to the public over a month ago, to our colleagues in the House who were willing, after the way we ended, to come back to the table to see if we could find middle ground, and certainly to West Machida and others in